Welcome, and thank you for joining Nayya at our Innovation Within the Changing Workplace webinar. This webinar will feature Lesley Elwell, Head of People at Dunn, Shawn Ferguson, Senior Vice President Voluntary Benefits at Acrisure, and will be moderated by Sydney Hammonds, Director of Business Development at Nayya.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's installment in the Nayya webinar series. Our topic for today is innovation within the changing workplace with a look ahead to 2021. Today, we're diving into the impact of 2020 on our workforce, from employee mental health to productivity, and how leading employers and brokers alike are supporting employees during these uniquely challenging times. We are very excited to welcome two subject matter experts joining us for today's session. Lesley Elwell, Chief People Officer at Dunn, which is one of the nation's top 10 general construction companies, and Shawn Ferguson, National SVP of Voluntary Benefits at Acrisure, which is the fastest growing insurance broker in the world. Lesley, Shawn, I would love to pass the mic for you two to share a brief introduction with the audience. Lesley, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Sydney. So again, Lesley Elwell, Chief People Officer for Dunn. I've had the honor to hold this position for now 3 years. And let me tell you a little bit about Dunn. Reason why I'm so honored to lead the people plans is because, as Sydney shared at the beginning, right, it is about the people. And never before has ever been so important. And Dunn is about enriching lives through inspired people and places. And in order to do that, we build everything from hospitals to schools to data centers to government and everything in between, commercial construction. And we're in about 23 cities in the United States and about 3,500 employees. So just been very excited to lead this industry that is so much is ripe for transformation, for evolution, and we've had all the levers and everything this year, right, to make it happen even faster. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Lesley, so much, and thanks for being here with us. Shawn?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Shawn Ferguson, and I am with Acrisure, Senior Vice President of Voluntary Benefits. And as you mentioned, Acrisure is the fastest growing insurance brokerage in the U.S., if not the world. We have about 500 offices across the U.S. And so working with these offices, it's my job as subject matter expert, both for voluntary benefits as well as enrollment, to work not only with our brokerage teams, but also their clients. And so work the four corners of the US and everything in between. And so I have a lot of exposure to both small, medium, and quite large employer groups in all different industries.
Amazing. Well, thank you both again so much for being here. Very, very happy to have you today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sydney Hammonds. I head up business development here at Nayya. Nayya is a technology company that uses artificial intelligence and data science to personalize the way that people choose and use their insurance. So with that, let's get started, you two, on today's topic. In 2020, we have lived through a global pandemic. It has also been a defining year for social issues. No doubt 2020 has forced us all to rethink how we live, work, and interact with one another. Lesley, I would love to begin with you. What changes as a result of the global pandemic do you view as temporary or short-lived? And what changes do you view as permanent or long-lasting with respect to how we live and work?
Thank you for asking, Sydney. I'll talk about, each of, the changes that I think both from a short-term and a long-term. Right? The first one that I think comes to mind to most of us, is not all of us, is that flexibility of where the work gets done, assuming you can get it done somewhere else other than the office, right? So in my world, we build buildings, and sometimes you can't build buildings from home. However, the positions that can do that, I would say definitely flexibility. Short term, it's been 100% virtual. It's been fully around making sure that if anybody is not comfortable, right, they don't have to. I think longer term, I think that'll evolve to more choice from the employee. However, not fully remote. I do believe that the collaboration in person and the teamwork will still be needed for companies to continue to progress. I think that's one. The second one that I'll mention is communication. I think this year has allowed many leaders, many senior leaders, to almost humanize themselves in a different way, because we've had to be a lot faster, right? And be a lot faster in the way that we communicate to employees, and a lot more frequent. So we've been, I think, very casual. Sometimes even with hats or sweatshirts or things like that at home, and I think that's across many industries. I think that transcends, right, the industry. I think in the future it'll be great to have a combination of both, to be able to actually show more of that humanity from the managers, from the senior leaders, that employees can connect with. And I would say third, changes now and in the future is around how employers consider how people do life, and implement and embed more empathy into it. Anything from how child care is done, how older care is done, different ways for mental and health and well-being. Right, I think that is incredibly very focused right now. I think in the future, I think there will be a balance. I think there will be, companies will be having challenges not only from a physical standpoint and or financial wellness, but also mental wellness, anything from kindness challenges, gratitude challenges that will bring, again, a different perspective of how we come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Such good points. I think the, humility and flexibility certainly are so appreciated, especially during such challenging times. Shawn, I would love your take here.
Yeah. So for me, temporary, this is a very, very obvious one, but one that's important nonetheless. Masks. Right now, if we are back at work, back in office, back in a confined space, we're wearing masks. And to me, this is so important to move past eventually, because facial cues, recognition, understanding someone's emotion. You mentioned humility among other things, but when we're working in a confined space and someone has that mask on, let's think of HR professionals needing to read and kind of take the temperature of their workforce, understanding what's the morale in the workplace right now. Do I need to increase it? Do we need to surprise people with a lunch today? We mentioned lunches. Just being able to really read people's facial expressions to understand what's going on, because as HR professionals, it's important for us to have a nice pulse on our company and the morale within the workplace. So I see that as short term, and one will move past. But everything else, I think it's just been accelerated due to COVID. I mean, there's more and more of us working remotely now, right? Like, I used to travel the nation Monday through Thursday, different parts of the country at different times, and then home on weekends. Now I'm working remotely. And just to give you an example, the average age of an agency owner for us, there's, again, 500 agencies across the US, but 57 and a half years old. That demographic really sit across the table, look someone in the eye, shake their hand, and really get a pulse of who they're doing business with. Now, because of COVID, because of the traveling bans, because of offices being shut, it's accelerated the use of technology. We already had more and more millennials kind of working their way into leadership positions within the workforce, and they've embraced technology more. But however, for some of those that had been opposed to it before, they needed to transform their way of doing business because of this environment we find ourselves in. So I really just think that accelerated things. And, there's benefits to that. If I'm an employer and I have a remote workforce, I no longer just need to look for employees within my zip code, my area code, not even my city or state. I can be in New York City looking for someone in Southern California. I can now hire the best people that are fit for the job, and geography doesn't matter. And so it's really going to create a lot of competition within the workforce. And with competition, HR professionals and CEOs, CFOs, they're going to need to rethink benefit packages. And I think benefits are going to become more and more important. And this is true not only for HR professionals, but for brokers alike as well. We're conducting more and more Zoom type meetings like this. You know, what's in my background? Is my lighting okay? Do I have my phone turned off? Is it going to buzz and an obnoxious ring come up in the middle of a meeting? So different things like this is what we'll have to consider. And flexibility is going to be key. There are going to be challenges as well as solutions that we don't even know yet exist that we're going to be faced with. And as long as we're all flexible and willing to adapt, we'll get through it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you both bring up such interesting points. I have to say, Shawn, you're an example of a New York-based company that's now hiring in Southern California. I'm like, that's us. So, you know, you're absolutely right. On the one hand, there is completely that sense of sort of togetherness and, you know, increased flexibility and casual communication style and humility, like Lesley spoke to, and more opportunities for all given remote work. And at the same time, you know, there's certainly a significant set of challenges. You mentioned masks, that's one. We know HR Policy Association recently released a report stating that due to living in a prolonged state of unpredictability, that employees' ability to focus attention and complete tasks is down 31%. And so we're all doing, you know, that much more. We're sort of forced to do that much more just to achieve the same outcome as we have in years past. Shawn, I'll ask this question to you first. How do you see technology, and you have spoken to this a little bit, how do you see technology aiding us as an industry with respect to these challenges? And, you know, what new innovations are you seeing that employers or brokers and consultants alike are implementing to further support their workforce and, you know, continue to drive business despite these challenges in 2020?
Yeah, so I mean, what we're doing here today is a prime example. Virtual meetings, they were already trending in the positive direction and exponentially trending up. But again, this has been accelerated, and so it has become the new norm. And so before, where Zoom might have been a meeting of last resort, especially if you were able to travel to someone, it was maybe frowned upon. Now it's commonplace. And, you know, not only that, but I mean, I find it kind of relieving in a way that everybody is kind of embracing this Zoom environment, if you will, along with GoToMeeting and several others, because I work at home with a 3-year-old and a dog. And so there is background noise at times. You may hear some before this presentation or this panel discussion's over. But it's okay. It's not something we need to be embarrassed about. It adds a human element that, to me, makes doing business more about the person and less about just the pure business aspect of it. So it is the virtual meetings. But with the virtual meetings, I mean, this is brokers communicating with HR. It's brokers communicating with their vendors. It's HR communicating with all their strategic partners, as well as their work at home employees. We're also looking at virtual meetings or virtual open enrollment meetings. And, you know, what does that mean? Of course, we've done webinars in the past and recorded webinars, but what else does it mean? You know, after those recorded webinars, a lot of brokers would go sit in the lunchroom or hire an enrollment firm or benefit counselors to go help educate folks one-on-one. That's no longer the case. Both enrollment firms are saying, you know what, we're not going to put our employees at risk. And even clients are saying, we don't want outsiders in here. We don't want you, the broker. We don't want the carriers in here. We certainly don't want an enrollment team meeting with everybody one-to-one. And so what that means moving forward is, you know, how are we going to utilize technology? Obviously, webinars are going to be of utmost importance, but beyond that, what about meeting with the employees and actually answering their questions? So there's going to be additional meetings like this one-on-one where people can see each other. There's going to be the use of call centers. There's going to be a lot of enrollment platforms. And in the past, you know, I've always been a proponent of self-enroll environment as long as 3 different items are achieved. And that's group meetings ahead of time, and that can be a webinar format. Product placement on the platform, utilizing the technology that you have at your disposal. And then active enrollment, You need to make employees go to the platform or encourage them to go and learn about their benefits. I mean, in the broker space, we realized that our clients' number two line item on their P&L in many cases is the cost of a benefit package. And so you really want to educate your employees and make sure they fully understand what's available to them. And so including or implementing an additional resource like Nayya to really help with the decision-making process, almost puts it on steroids a little bit. I mean, right now we do need to be worried about the human error element. And when you can combine artificial intelligence with the human touch on the front end, choosing the various plans, and then incorporate lifestyle as well, to me, it really is the way of the future. And there's going to be more and more that start embracing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, couldn't agree more with your thought around accelerating what was already in motion, and, you know, paper sort of being a way of the past and platforms like Nayya paving the way for the future. Lesley, I would love to hear your perspective on, you know, new technology in our new era, or anything specifically that you find, you know, particularly valuable for your workforce.
Well, thank you, Sydney. You know, Shawn was just right on point. You know, just continue, you know, his thoughts. You know, I always love to think about how we work with employees, right? And I've always been a believer of tell me and I will forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn. And it's been so interesting to see how technology and how this year has allowed us to accelerate how we involve employees, how employees are involved in the decisions, right, that they have to make either for their lives or their work. I really envision decision support tools and performance support tools to be able to guide better and faster and in a more efficient way and cheaper really for the companies, to be able to, you know, drive those decisions for employees. You know, Shawn mentioned, right, Nayya, and we're super excited to look at, you know, this way for employees to be educated and to actually see a recommendation on what to do, right, for their health benefits, right? I'm looking forward to in the near future for them to have something similar around their financials, right, wellness, where they can decide, right, between, you know, what retirement, what, you know, tuition reimbursement for school, the end of school loans, you know, with all the options that they have. How do I think about it? How do I balance it? Should I balance it in the same way for everybody in the company, or should I have a more personalized way, right? How do I learn? And, you know, in the way that I learn, right, is different than others. So how do I make sure that, you know, that based on the work that I'm doing, that there are tools that is driving me with, you know, guidance and suggestions on what could I do better and how. You know, I really believe that in the next 2 years, because of COVID, that is going to accelerate so much more. I do believe that, you know, sometimes maybe that would have been probably a 5-10 year strategy. I think we're within 2-3 years for, you know, the majority of companies to go there. So very, you know, just again, exciting times to really be able to, what I would say, be people-led and tech-enabled. You know, I do believe on the humanity, and that, you know, it's always about people, and it's always about leaders, yet having the right technology to enable and drive the work the way that we need it to be done.
Yes, thank you. People-led, tech-enabled. I love that. You know, and I think you talked too about personalization, which is something that we sort of demand in every other facet of our lives. And then, you know, sometimes with respect to benefit systems and platforms,
the company comes and tells you, and here's what you're going to do with your 401k. Here's what you're going to do with your retirement. Here's what you're going to do with your health. And here's what, like, okay, got it.
Exactly. So
here's what you need to learn, and here's how you need to learn it. And here's first year, right?
Exactly. It's nice to like sort of have all of these HR technologies and systems meeting us into, you know, the 21st century, where Netflix is like, hey, you watch this, you're going to like that. You know what? It's like we're finally catching up here, which is
right. You know, as an HR leader, I just love that. Here comes HR. Is this coming here? Time to set the goals, right? So they're going there.
Yes, exactly. They see you coming. But yeah, I mean, you both, I think, touched on that acceleration, which is, I think, so fascinating and something that, you know, we've seen personally here as well. Switching gears just a little bit, I want to talk with you guys about industry trends. So to Shawn's earlier point with respect to so much, of what we're experiencing now accelerating, and we see, mental health and other non-traditional benefits or programs in sort of a similar vein. Mental health has been on many employers' radar prior to 2020. However, the challenges of this year have simply accelerated the need for a better infrastructure in this area. And so Lesley, would love to hear from you first. What trends do you see in how leading employers are addressing mental health and other non-traditional but yet increasingly important employee needs? And your take, would love your personal take on benefits or programs that you're thinking about to sort of bridge this gap.
Absolutely. I would share, just two ideas. The first one starts with the focus may not be starting with what are the new programs, all right, and or projects or initiatives, but it may be more, how are we making sure that we embed well-being into the work itself, right? And we talked about flexibility, throughout this conversation. And I believe that that is going to be a key piece of well-being, making sure that people can do the job in the way that they are able and comfortable in doing so. I believe that, well-being is also going to be, part of making sure that, the work also doesn't get done just in time, but just in case. What's my support, right? In case I'm not here, how can I share? How can I do it differently? I think that's going to be, one area. And then I do think the second area is going to be around, how well-being, what are those new programs and new initiatives to support, right, the well-being of employees. And, I do believe that there's an opportunity and this industry will revolutionize itself and will explode because of COVID, really, because I believe that the traditional ways in which either employers try to provide solutions to this is good, but it's not making a step change approach. I will tell you EAP, right, for example, which is a great program, and I'm choosing it as an example, please. It's great, yet we don't see the step change, changes that we would expect given the needs that we know that are there. So I believe that, that partners, right, and companies that are working on this are going to have to come together in a different way to provide solutions that we haven't even thought about.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is what you're speaking to with that embedding, taking everything that we've talked about, flexibility, humility, all of these components in it, like embedding that into the everyday, way that we do work. That in and of itself is sort of a unique approach and a unique perspective.
Yeah,
Shawn,
what's interesting, Sydney, sorry to interrupt you, but it made me think about something, right? But, in the past couple of years, many companies, transcend industries, right, have challenged themselves with how do we embed a customer experience into the fabric of the culture? How do we embed, diversity and inclusion into the fabric of the company, right? Yeah. I think that is really, the broadest way of thinking about, well-being covers all those things, right? It's truly how do we embed well-being into the fabric of the company and make sure that it's included in everything that we do, and every employee of the company knows what to do and what to do differently for their well-being, right? That is such a big journey that I don't think we know exactly how we're going to get there yet.
But we're on our way. No, I completely agree. Shawn, I think, you offer an interesting, almost like bird's eye view, having an oversight of benefit strategy for many leading organizations. I would love to hear your take on how employers are sort of bridging this gap and, addressing these maybe non-traditional but increasingly important employee needs.
Absolutely. So, to set the stage, I think what we have happening here, or I know what we have happening here are two different things. First of all, millennials, yes, are starting to make their way into leadership roles within organizations, both small, medium, and large. Millennials have different experiences with technology and even human interaction than any generation before them. What millennials also have experienced is, well, first of all, they're now the largest demographic within the workplace as well. And like no other generation before them, they've removed the stigma from these behavioral health issues. So, you know, in the past, even when I was younger, it was looked down upon. If you needed a therapist or you needed a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whatever the case may be, if you had behavioral issues or emotional issues, it was looked at differently than if you had a broken arm. Now that stigma is almost completely removed with this generation. I mean, they see it as, I have a broken hand, I need to go get that fixed. My emotions are broken, something's not matching on the exterior as what I'm feeling on the interior, I need to get that fixed as well. And so there are two leading programs that I'm seeing that are non-traditional in nature. They've been around for years, but haven't been used the way that they can. And I think it's going to be, again, accelerated. And the first of which is behavioral health. So you're going to see more and more programs focused around behavioral health, anything from traditional therapists to more coverage surrounding that, to telemedicine or telebehavioral health, where someone can anonymously call in, talk to a therapist, and not need to sit on that couch or sit in that chair across the table, or some even fear walking into one of those offices. Who might see me walk through this door? And so those barriers are being removed. Additionally speaking, I think more and more employers, HR professionals, even brokers are concerned with how can we make employees happy? And so it's bringing back in incentivized programs, not just major medical insurance and these great voluntary benefit packages, but I have employees working at home. You know, maybe I'll send them a bottle of wine so that they can have happy hour with their spouse on Friday. Maybe there's going to be more childcare because the children can't be at home and a distraction. And so it's really going to be a net increase in productivity and earnings by me spending that money to provide the care that they need. Maybe it's a gift card or a gas card or home delivery groceries, something of that nature. I think, one of my buddies, he's John Rulin, he's author of a book called Giftology, and that's all he talks about is gifting and the art of gifting. And one thing he did for his staff that I love, that I read in his book, is he sent them a housemaid service every 2 weeks so that they didn't need to worry about cleaning their own house, that, they would be done with the workday, the beds would be made, the laundry done, the kitchen clean, things of that nature. I think more and more of that's going to work its way into the workplace. And it's about meeting the employees where they're at. You can't just say, hey, you know what, I want to give a gas card to everyone. Sure, you can do that, but it's so impersonable. Someone that, when they're working from home, doesn't travel a lot, maybe they don't want a gas card. Maybe they don't want to leave their house for some reason. Likewise, someone that wants happy hour, maybe you have others that are non-drinkers. And so I think you're going to see more incentivized programs that are kind of reward based in a way to where maybe there's a point system where you can choose different benefits that suit you, but it's about that flexibility, which I think has come up time and time again during this conversation. It's meeting employees and your clients where they're at to try to do your best to work with them in the way in which they want to be worked with. The other thing I see in addition to behavioral health is financial well-being. It's yes, we've provided 401ks and other products or insurance products to protect the financial well-being of folks, but it's educating people on how to budget, other programs helping people to consolidate their student loans or to refinance those student loans or even to pay back those student loans. This generation, now again, the largest within the workforce, they also have the most student debt. And so maybe it's not a gas card or a happy hour, but it's, hey, an extra 100 for my student loans this month would be very helpful. Babysitter programs, things of that nature. But back to the financial well-being, it again is helping people to understand budgeting off of what they have coming in, helping them to have access to the student loan consolidation and other financial incentive programs out there. And then we're seeing more and more of payday advances. For one reason or another, maybe folks are running short on pay before their payday. Instead of them needing to go to a loan shark or one of those pay loan advances, they're getting it through their employers. So it's, in short, behavioral health and financial health that I think we're going to see work its way into the workplace more.
Absolutely. I think something sort of interesting that you were talking about is wanting to really delight employees and make employees happy, and all of the different ways that we can do that through, these various personalized sort of fringe benefits that you're describing. But addressing your earlier point of how, we're seeing more and more competition, based on the fact that I can live here and work there, and, therefore your best employee is somebody else's best prospect. Everything that you just talked about is sort of, not only doing right by the employee, but actually feeding back into those, bigger company initiatives and strategic initiatives with respect to retention and reducing turnover, and, keeping people happy, but keeping them employed with your organization. So I completely agree. Thank you both so much. In summary, with a look ahead to 2021, I think there's a few themes that we can sort of plan on. I love Shawn's optimism that masks are a temporary thing. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. I can't wait to see everybody's faces again here soon. It sounds like from your perspectives, we can continue to expect more and more investments into what Lesley said, how people do life. I love that. Most importantly, this is going to continue to be powered by technology. And to Shawn's point, maybe that looks like behavioral health through technology, or therapy through technology, rather than even walking through a therapist's doors, and, really leveraging technology to create a tailored and personalized experience for all in all facets of life. And I think, as we know now more than ever, our people are our most valuable asset. And so keeping those folks happy and engaged, through all of these mechanisms that you both have spoken to. I would love to close out today's session by giving you both the opportunity to share your personal take on best practices for brokers and employers alike, rounding out 2020 and looking ahead here into 2021. Shawn, let's begin with you.
Great. Yeah, for me, best practices is going to be, you need to embrace technology. It's not going anywhere. Embrace it. It'll make your life easier, and those around you, it'll make their lives easier as well. Embrace it and use it as a tool instead of kicking and screaming towards some of the new initiatives and new technology out there. And remain flexible. We don't all have this figured out. I don't have it figured out, but the flexibility and the embracing of technology will really help me to navigate these troubled waters at times. So again, technology and flexibility, I think, are going to be key.
Thank you. Lesley?
All right, Shawn, I have to say too, people-led, tech-enabled. People-led is, I believe that empathy will continue to increase and rise up in the priority of great skills for a great leader. The formula for a great leader is changing, and understanding and being empathetic about the well-being of employees continues to be more crucial than ever. So don't leave that. And then two, think about technology, about something fun and exciting. Don't think about technology because it's got to be tech-enabled. Don't think about technology that it's a medicine that you have to take to get healthy. It is about going to a restaurant and having the most unique, different experience with a different flavor that's just going to make your life better. That's how you need to think about it. If you embrace those things, I think you'll just be unstoppable.
I love it. Well,
excellent. Great.
Thank you both so much. Lesley, I think that's what we need. We all need to get together and have that dinner you're talking about. So.
There you go. Exactly. I love the virtual discussion for everyone that's listening. But in the future, hopefully we can also cheer with a drink.
That's right. Well, thank you both for being here. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you all for tuning in to this installment of the Nayya webinar series, and we'll see you back next month.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.